Today, we are diving into one of the most powerful stories in American history, but probably from an angle you haven't considered. We're going to explore the incredibly complex and frankly terrifying reality of what freedom actually felt like for Frederick Douglass, right in those first moments after he escaped slavery.
So, what does it feel like to finally be free? I mean, we all think we know the answer, right? It's got to be pure joy, this huge, overwhelming sense of relief, the end of a nightmare. But for Frederick Douglass, the man who risked absolutely everything for that single moment, the answer? Well, it was nowhere near that simple.
And that's coming from the man himself. He could never really answer that question. And that is the heart of the paradox we're looking at. So why? Why would a man who would do anything for liberty find the actual experience so complicated? To get it, we really have to start with what he was giving up.
You see, the price of his escape wasn't just about outrunning slave catchers. Long before he ever set foot in the North, Douglass had to fight through these two massive hurdles, both in his heart and in his mind.
It was this incredible internal conflict. On one hand, he said the most painful thought was leaving the community, the friends that he loved, back in Baltimore. But on the other hand, was this paralyzing fear of failure. Remember, this was his second try. If he failed again, that was it. It meant horrible punishment, probably being sold down south, and sealing his fate as a slave forever.
So for him, the choice couldn't be clear. There was no middle ground. As he put it, it was life and death with me. With that kind of pressure, with those stakes, he made his move.
And guess what? He made it. He succeeded. But what did that first taste of freedom actually feel like? Let's zoom in on that one initial moment of triumph, when he first stepped onto free soil.
So it's September 3rd, 1838. He arrives in New York City. The journey went off without a hitch. The physical chains were finally broken. For the first time in his entire life, he was his own master.
But his feeling, it wasn't just relief. No, it was the feeling of surviving a mortal threat. He said he felt like one who had escaped a den of hungry lions. Can you imagine that adrenaline, that raw, overwhelming sense of having cheated death? This was the absolute peak of his joy. But it was about to vanish.
Yeah, that incredible high, it was unbelievably short-lived. What came next was something he never saw coming, this just crushing loneliness.
And just like that, the joy was gone. He was immediately gripped by, in his words, a feeling of great insecurity and loneliness. And this, right here, is the paradox of his freedom. He'd escaped the den of lions, only to find himself completely alone in this vast, scary, unknown wilderness. So what did that insecurity actually look like walking the streets of New York? Well, it meant being a total stranger in a city teeming with thousands of people. It meant having no home, not a single friend. It meant being terrified to even speak to anyone because, who knows, any stranger could be an informant. And hanging over all of it was the constant, terrifying threat of being captured at any second. And look, this wasn't just some vague feeling of being unsafe. No, this was the real, lived experience of being hunted. For Douglass, the free land of New York felt a lot more like a new kind of hunting ground. To survive, he had to live by this brutal motto, trust no man. Just think about that for a second. The whole foundation of building a new life, of finding a community, is trust. And for Douglass, trust wasn't just something he couldn't afford, it was a liability that could actually get him killed.
The level of isolation here is just devastating. He saw every single white person as a potential enemy, a potential slave catcher. But what's even more heartbreaking is that he saw almost every black person as a potential betrayer, someone who might turn him in for a reward. He was just completely and utterly alone.
Through this experience, Douglass completely redefines the word fugitive for us. It's not just some legal status, it's a state of total vulnerability. You're friendless, you have no money, you have no home, and you are constantly being pursued. It meant being surrounded by everything, houses, food, people, but having access to absolutely none of it.
So, if breaking the chains didn't actually make him feel free, what would? Well, his experience shows us that physical liberation, that's just step one. True freedom, that's something else entirely. This really lays out the roadmap for everything he was missing. So, physical liberation, okay, check, he'd done that. But what about safety from being captured? What about a community built on trust? Or the economic independence that comes from having a job and some money? And finally, just a place to call home. Without all of those things, the broken chains didn't mean very much. You see, getting to New York wasn't the end of his journey to freedom. It was just the beginning of a whole new and very dangerous chapter. Freedom wasn't a place he could just arrive at. It was a state of being he had to build himself, piece by dangerous piece.
Douglas's incredible story really forces us to look past the simple idea of broken chains. It tells us that real freedom isn't just about liberation. It also demands safety. It demands community. And it demands a place where you belong. And that kind of leaves us with a question to think about. What does his journey teach us about what it truly means to be free right now, today?